Altogether, the call to order the January 13th meeting of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the town of Corte Madera. Again, stand and salute to the flag. Second item on our agenda tonight is the introduction of our new youth committee member, Dylan Knopfsinger. As many of you might know, Dylan's father, Tom, served on the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for many years, and the town council decided some months ago to have youth members on many of the town's commissions and advisory committees. And so we're pleased that Dylan chose to put his name into the hat. And I've known him since he was in kindergarten, I think. And he may have more miles under his belt than any other youth bicycle rider in the town of Corte Madera. Quite accomplished, and should be able to bring quite a bit of insights from a younger person's position to the committee. So welcome, Dylan. And Dylan, your microphone is green. If you want to just very briefly tell other members a little bit about your background. I know you went through it when you were interviewed by the town council, but just give us an idea of why bicycling is important to you.
I'm Dylan. I like to ride bikes. I ride all over town quite often. I've been doing it pretty much my whole life, about 14 years, 16, but I started riding when I was 2, and I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go for open time for the public regarding any items that are not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes to address any non-agenda item, and the BPAC cannot respond to the items that you bring up, but we'll certainly make note of it and take that information where it should go. Can I stop you just for one moment? Is the public microphone on? I can't tell. Very good. Go ahead.
As I was saying, I'm Bob Middlestead with E-Bike Access. We're a nonprofit dedicated to promoting expanded access for e-bikes. I'm here to ask you to recommend to the town council, or to agendize it first if you have to do that, as an urgent matter, that the town council implement an ordinance that is just authorized by AB 1778. That was Damon Conley's bill, signed by the governor last September, that authorizes Corte Madera and the other municipalities to require riders of throttle e-bikes to be at least 16 years old. This request to you, like AB 1778, is based on 2 facts. One is that the accident rate for youth 10 to 15 years old is 5 times higher than any other age group for electric devices. And the second fact is that that age group tends to ride the throttle devices that are sold with Class 2 labels. Whether they're actually Class 2 e-bikes or not, they have the labels on them. And so they can be covered by AB 1778. 9 months ago, the civil grand jury came to the same conclusion, that there was a danger that, to quote them, operation of Class 2 e-bikes by operators under the age of 16 poses a significant risk to the safety of the e-bike operators, as well as members of the public. And the Corte Madera Town Council, like all other municipalities in Marin, agreed with those findings. So now we've got AB 1778 effective start of this year. It's time to actually implement and do something about it. The reasons to do so, I think, are quite obvious. It will save lives. That was the whole reason for the bill. And I don't see any good reason not to do it. Some people say, well, it's unfair to kids, but children will still be able to ride regular bikes and pedal assist bikes. They just won't be able to ride a throttle bike until they're 16. And the ordinance is not difficult to draft. Some people have said, well, it's going to take a lot of staff time. The ordinance is laid out in AB 1778. You can't deviate from it. I've drafted the ordinance, and I'd be happy to leave a copy if somebody wants to see how easy it is. To be effective, all municipalities in the county for unincorporated areas need to pass the ordinance. And what we're facing now is kind of a waiting game. Nobody wants to be first on the dance floor. So somebody needs to step up and take some leadership. And I think with this committee's stature and expertise, and with the town council's, focus on bicycle safety, Corte Madera is a perfect community to go first in this. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. However, procedurally, you need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members in the audience that would like to speak at open time?
Good evening. My name is Laura, and I'm going with the podium. I'm here this evening to talk on behalf of the Corte Madera citizens who live on Chapman Hill in Chapman Park. Our concern regards the preservation and the much needed repairs to the historic stairs, Tainter Steps, located between Lower Chapman Drive and Stetson Avenue. If anyone in the room is not familiar with their location, they are on page 137 of Jana Hull's historic readings and writings of Corte Madera history. These steps were constructed in 1906 under the direction of Mr. Tainter, who was given the job of selling the 1,800 lots Mr. Chapman had made available to people wanting to leave the San Francisco area after the earthquake in order to build permanent homes across the, well, there was no bridge, across the bay here in Marin County. They are enjoyed and they're used daily, not only by the neighbors of Chapman Hill, but also by people from all over Marin and beyond, particularly more so after the pandemic, as people needed to get out of their homes and walking with their children and pets. They are also an integral part of our NRG evacuation route on Chapman Hill. The ongoing damage to these steps is a result of the invasion of the roots from the trees planted alongside over 120 years ago when the steps were constructed using the local bluestone from the Larkspur quarry. When I was a child and the trees were then about 50 years old, well, a little less, because I grew up in the 1950s on Chapman Hill. These trees have reached massive heights. The trees now are over 120 years old. Their roots are the continuing cause of the damage done to many of the unique steps, each etched in arts and crafts design by the stonemasons of the early part of the last century. The present condition of the stairs creates many safety hazards to walkers and hikers of all ages, which must be addressed. It is our hope that the city of Corte Madera will recognize the importance and value in repairing and maintaining and enjoying this heritage pathway as a part of Corte Madera's history from the days when the train passed through Chapman Park, picking up passengers who made their way down Chapman Hill on Tainter Steps to catch the train, which stopped nearby. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public present that would like to speak at open time?
Good evening, Chair McPherson and members of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. My name is John Ma. I'm a governor of the American College of Surgeons, and I was the 2018 president of the San Francisco Marin Medical Society. I'd ask you to follow the recommendation of Mr. Middlestat and to place on a future agenda for this meeting and to recommend to the town council that AB 1778 be implemented in Corte Madera. The bill was inspired by the story of my patient, Miss Amelia Stafford, a teenager from San Rafael who was seriously injured in a e-bike accident on what she believed to be a Class 2 e-bike. She spent several months in the hospital and underwent 4 life-saving operations. I really would like to applaud Supervisor Mary Sackett, Assemblyman Damon Connolly, and Governor Gavin Newsom for creating this opportunity to craft a pilot program in Marin County to better understand the risks associated with e-bikes. The intent of 1778 is consistent with the grand jury report. Class 2 e-bikes with a throttle can travel up to 20 miles per hour. This is far in excess of the consumer product safety recommendations for children under the age of 12. This bill, the intent of it, will move Class 2 e-bikes to the authority, to the jurisdiction of Class 3 e-bikes. And I think it should be relatively straightforward to enforce. I think it would be wonderful if Corte Madera were to lead this effort forward to gather more data for the state of California. Really want to applaud Ms. Stafford for going public with her story to protect youth all across the state of California. You know, over at Marin Health Medical Center, what has been witnessed is that 1 out of 8 patients brought to the emergency room after a full trauma activation after a e-bike accident did not survive. The mortality is dramatically greater than with bicycles. It's much more consistent with motorcycles. I actually think that some of these vehicles, some of these bikes really should be termed e-mopeds or e-motorcycles. They really are motorized vehicles. And so to protect youth, to protect their future, I would ask you to place this onto a future agenda and to recommend that the town council here lead the effort forward across. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else present to speak at open time? And if not, is there anyone on online?
No one online has their hands up.
All right. Appreciate all those comments during open time, and they will be acted upon. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the September 9th, 2024 meeting. And is there anyone on the BPAC that has changes to?
One change is that I'm listed as absent and I'm listed as absent in the minutes and I was present. I arrived late, so to be listed as present.
Any other changes? Did anyone else notice anything that requires a change? And if not, we'll move that the minutes are approved. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Does anyone on the committee, the BPAC, have any reports of any meetings that occurred since the last BPAC hearing? No reports. All right, next on the agenda is presentations, and 6A is the town's ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, self-assessment and request for public feedback.
Hi. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Cartagena. I am a senior civil engineer with the Public Works Department. And I'm going to be introducing our consultant team who's going to go through this presentation. We're in the early stages of the self-assessment process. Our goal today is to report on the progress that we've made so far, but our primary focus is to gather, to inform the committee and the public, and to gather valuable input from the community and the committee as well. This feedback is going to help us guide the town and the consultants as we go through this process and as we finalize our reviewing our facilities and other processes, and also as we finalize the report eventually. The report's going to be, or the assessment's going to be reviewing the town's owned and operated facilities, programs, services, and activities, and the town policies and procedures. The consultant Altura, they were selected after a 2023 request for proposals that went out. We received some highly experienced teams, and we conducted interviews, and we were impressed with Altura and the team that they put together. They have a lot of experience nationally, and they also have Mike Hilliard, who's also available and on this call, who is the local California expert in this field as well. Yeah, I guess the only other thing that I would want to mention before I hand it off to them is that this process is building on past work that the town has completed so far. In 2013, the town produced a barrier removal implementation plan. In 2023, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan had a detailed list of inventory and a deficiency list of all the park facilities and some of the town facilities. And then we also have an ongoing sidewalk pilot program, which assists homeowners in addressing deficiencies that's on sidewalks on their frontage. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chewy and his team, Altura, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll circle back to the Q&A process and be happy to provide any additional information.
Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
Mhm.
I do not have control of the screen to go to the next slide. Is
Oh,
it
yeah.
possible?
Just let me know and I can.
Oh.
I can
Okay, Chewy, take it away.
Good evening. As Nick mentioned,
There you go. Sorry.
as Nick mentioned, we are Altura Solutions, and we are the consulting firm assisting the town of Corte Madera with the ADA transition plan. And we have a slide just pointing out a few things to know, that you can leave and rejoin at any point. And you can raise your hand if you have any questions, for example, and any materials that are requested, we can make available post-meeting. So the project team is comprised of staff from the town of Corte Madera, as well as Altura Solutions, and then Hilliard Architects. So RJ Suko is a public works director who we've been interacting with, along with Nick Cartagena, who's a senior engineer, and then with Bernie Zapay, who's the town ADA coordinator. I am Jesus Lardizábal, and Julian Owen is also with Altura Solutions. And then Mike Hilliard is the California Registered Accessibility Specialist that is on our team as well. So agenda, we went over the meeting overview. We'll go over the goals, the actual self-assessment, the assessment types. We'll have the next steps, and then questions where we will request input from the public. So the meeting goals is to inform the public about the ADA self-assessment, what it will help the town achieve, how the process works. We'll go over the time frame and the opportunity for feedback and questions. So what is the ADA? For those of you that don't know, the Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of a person's disability. So the ADA ensures equal opportunity for all individuals, including people with disabilities, in the areas of employment, state and local government services, which we will cover, public accommodations, and telecommunications. So the ADA self-assessment. This is an assessment to identify potential barriers to town-owned and operated facilities. And we'll go over some examples. Programs, services, and activities, and this includes anything the town does, from the website to parks activities, and then policies and procedures, which basically dictate how you deliver programs and services. So what does this mean for the town of Corte Madera? It means that the goal will be to meet ADA Title II requirements. It will mean enhance existing programs and services by ensuring that they are barrier-free, create accessibility and inclusion within the community, and of course, all of this will be a benefit to the community. So the project timeline, we had our project kickoff back in July of 2024. We started conducting staff interviews so we could learn how the town operates. We have been assessing program services and activities along with facilities through December. And we are here to talk about the public input process. We will continue through April with staff training on the findings and as well as implementation. And then in May, we will complete the final assessment. So programs, services, and activities is basically everything that the town does in the course of conducting business. So this includes parks and recreation classes, senior programs, youth programs, the website. So we will look at these elements as they are submitted by the town, and we will analyze them to ensure that there are no barriers to people with disabilities. And then along with programs and services, you have policies and procedures. And so basically policies and procedures is how you deliver your programs and services. And some examples are a service animal policy, eligibility requirements for participation, or an application process for volunteers. We will conduct an analysis of program services and activities as well as policies and procedures. We will use a checklist to help identify any potential discrimination. We will correlate where programs and services are provided with facilities, and we will identify any gaps in the services being provided by the town. So some facility types that we have inspected include community parks, such as Granada Park, Menke Park, Bayside Trail Park, community buildings, such as Town Hall, Recreation Center, and the town's mini mall. As part of our assessment, we will pick up elements that are not compliant. Some of these elements are shown here. So we look at everything from an accessible route from the right-of-way to the building entrance, accessible parking, drinking fountains, restrooms, etc. So we will cover the facility and identify barriers within these elements. And part of our ask is that we want the community to tell us which of these elements are important to them, or more important. As we give the town our findings, we're often asked, well, where do we start? How can we prioritize things? So we want the public's input to help us prioritize these elements. So we will have assessed 12 town-owned facilities. We will identify barriers. We will also prioritize them for programmatic access. So the ADA does not require that you address every single physical barrier. Instead, they want you to reach program access. So for example, if you have a program on the second floor of a building with no elevator, you could install an elevator, or you could move that program to the first floor and make it accessible in that manner. So even though our reports might say there's no accessible route to the second floor, the town can simply move that program to the first floor and make it programmatically accessible. And we will also have reports with our assessments along with recommendations for remediation. So just a quick facility map of the 12 facilities that will be inspected as part of the process. next steps. So we are in the process of generating reports with our findings, but we are asking the community to please take a survey. And you can do it through the QR code. Please take a survey where you can go and tell us your priorities, as I discussed earlier, about elements within a facility. There's a sort of a process the ADA wants you to take where they help prioritize elements, but we want to know what the community thinks and how we should prioritize these elements, as well as prioritize things such as parks, maybe over municipal buildings, or retail over parks, etc. And along with that ask will be your opportunity to tell us what programs and services you use the most or are more important to you, so that we can also help prioritize those for the town.
And the survey will be open until March 1st. I apologize for the typo. So March 1st.
We encourage people to submit, go take the survey and submit answer or their responses so we can prioritize those for our report. And so, do we have any questions or comments?
So the process here will be, first, the BPAC will determine if there's any questions that they have for the presenters. Then it'll be opened to the public. And then after that, the BPAC will close with any comments that we have. So first, I'll open it up to members of the BPAC for any questions. Cheryl?
Yeah. I'm just would like a further elaboration on public outreach that might be done. And if there's, in particular, if there's, I see that you interviewed staff, but I'm wondering if you're interviewing members of the public that are involved in access for our older citizens, particularly the age-friendly task force here in town.
Yes, I can try to answer that question. Thanks for asking. We're not planning to reach out to any individual community members, but we have, as part of this presentation and outreach process, we sent the notice to a number of community groups for that are in this space throughout the county, with a link to the QR code, a link and the QR code to the survey, and to attend this meeting, and also notifying them that the meeting will be recorded. So even if they're not here virtually or physically, that they can still watch it and send in comments through email or phone call. So that's the plan at this point. We also have reached out to one in particular community member who's active in this space, and gotten some feedback from them as well.
Is this group planning to make this same presentation to the town council? The reason I ask is because it seems to me that if we're trying to reach as many of the citizens as we can, more citizens follow the town council meetings than BPAC.
Thank you, Vice Chair McPherson. So we will be presenting to the council at a later stage of this self-assessment. But really we're, doing everything we can, or at least to the extent we're aware, to get the word out. So, we reached out to the County Marin. They have a pretty active ADA group, and we try to get all the stakeholders they're aware of and sent them all letters. Obviously, we're doing what we can through the BPAC to get the word out. If we haven't already, we'll be sending social media through our newsletter and other things. So, if there's an area that you feel we haven't, fully taken advantage of, then please let us know. If there's a specific group in the area that you're aware of that would benefit from participating that wasn't on our list, well, we'd love to bring them in. It's not too late. But certainly as part of a wrap up, and kind of ultimately approve the plan, we will be taking it to council. So
The QR codes, are becoming more and more used, but I'm quite certain that many members of the community would prefer to see the survey in traditional format. And has this been noticed in the Corte Madera Chronicles, a weekly email that goes out to many of the citizens?
So yeah, we also got that feedback internally, and we provided a link in addition to the QR code. And my understanding is it went out to the weekly emails that go out, as well as the town's social media, and with the link.
Good. From the presentation, I get the feeling that there's not going to be an assessment or evaluation of facilities beyond the ones that were laid out. In other words, specifically sidewalks all over town, streets that may be problematic. Am I reading that correctly, that the streets and sidewalks are not going to be assessed?
So we're really trying to leverage the past work. And so there was a tremendous amount of effort that spent kind of focused on the right of way, and really kind of make the most of our dollars. We're trying to tackle the areas outside of that and focus on those. Not that the other ones won't be kind of part of the overall plan. Separate of that, it's worth mentioning that the town does own Park Madera Center. And so that is going to be included in our assessment, even though it's not it's a publicly owned private parcel. So we will be reviewing that as well. So that is kind of the one carve out, if you will.
Then finally, I was thinking, when a town is undergoing an assessment and evaluation like this, does it provide any short-term immunity from ADA claims that might be submitted by a citizen who feels that they've not had access? Well, I think that's the question. Is there any benefit other than the end goal of having a document that lays out how policies, procedures, and facilities need to be improved? Is there any immunity while this is going on?
And I wouldn't say immunity is the word I would use. However, it does demonstrate that the town has assessed its facilities and programs and has prioritized them. So for example, if somebody states they would like a specific facility to be addressed, let's say a restroom in a specific facility, the town can say it's prioritized here and we will be getting to it in year 2. But if there's a need to prioritize it and move it up, the town definitely can. So it's not immunity in terms of you can't be sued or have a claim filed against the town. However, it does go a long way to show that the town is engaged and has prioritized elements or barriers that are out and available. And that discourse can then happen between the person filing the grievance and the town to see if it needs to be moved up the list.
Thank you. Are there any other questions by members of the BPAC before we open it up to the public?
Richard, I was wondering how much outreach you're doing in the community, say on the bike paths with posters or on the arterials near the highway on-ramps. Tell people that the town's doing an ADA survey, and when any ADA grievances, now's the time. And also bus stops are a great spot. Over 50% of the bus stops in the county are not ADA compliant. And those are, the people who get the shortest end of the stick in terms of commuting, having to cross over those highway on-ramps, which, that new multi-use project was trying to work on. But yeah, start on those who are walking every day and bike paths, bus stops. And I second the gripes about the scannable feature. You know, a lot of people who didn't grow up with that are averse to it, and it only reaches maybe a quarter of the people you might want to reach who aren't tech savvy. So
I think it's a good point. We should target some QR codes messaging around our bus stops if we haven't already. So thanks for that.
Are there any members of the public inside the hall that would like to address this agenda?
Good evening. My name is Matt Hartzell. I live in Larkspur, about a block away from Corte Madera. I was listening to the dialogue about whether sidewalk ADA access is within the scope of the study, and it sounds like it may not be the primary focus, but that it may still be a secondary focus. So I hope my comments are within the scope, and that is on Palm Avenue and Pepper Avenue, just northeast of Palm Avenue. There are several cars that park with their left tires in the street and their right tires on the sidewalk. And about 80% of the cross section of the car is straddling the sidewalk, blocking sidewalk, pedestrian, and ADA access. I know that for me, with pushing a baby in a stroller, it's difficult enough to get by those parked cars blocking the sidewalk. So I imagined it would be difficult for someone in a wheelchair as well. So I just wanted to flag that as one area of grievance in case you weren't already aware of it. Thank you.
It's Jim Robinson at 25 Ash, Corte Madera, longtime resident. I wasn't sure exactly to what extent the town was reviewing the town facilities in totality. In other words, are you including sidewalks? Recently, a survey was completed of our senior citizens of the town of Corte Madera, and it was done, I think, 10 years ago. And 70% of the seniors that were surveyed said that their number one priority were safe sidewalks in the town of Corte Madera. So I don't know realistically how you could have an evaluation of ADA townwide facilities if you're not including sidewalks, because they're a very important part of our community and used frequently, as are our bike paths as well. I spent 8.5 years lobbying the BPAC and town council just to get an ADA approved sidewalk in front of Deal Cummings School. And I think if you walk through Madera Gardens or any other parts of our community, you'll find there are areas that are sorely in need of improvements to the sidewalk system to make them safe, to comply with what has been determined by our senior citizens anyway as a great need within our town community. So I hope that that could be part of the evaluation, and that some progress could be made in some areas where there are needs to make improvements to make them truly safe in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. See no other members of the public here. Are there any members online?
Oh yeah, there's
Members, citizens.
yeah. There's one person with a hand up. Patty, you can unmute yourself and talk.
Hello, good evening. Patty Stolier, Age Friendly Corte Madera, and previously on the Accessibility Advisory Committee before it was morphed into BPAC. And I have to say, I was flabbergasted to see in the Friday newsletter that there was a survey. I knew nothing about it. I don't know what the genesis of it was in 2023 to get the RFP out. And so I'm very confused by the whole thing. And yes, it's true that accessibility was a big part of both surveys that we did 10 years ago and last year. And I think what Cheryl brought up, that tapping into the information that we have dealt with over the last 11 years with Age Friendly would be vital to this. And I also totally agree that the QR code is not the answer for this demographic. So I really hope that that will be expanded to something more user-friendly. Thank you.
Is that it, Chris, or is there anyone else?
Yeah, no one else.
So I have two more questions before we go to comments. There was an issue brought up regarding vehicles that park partially on a sidewalk, and I would, maybe RJ, you know the answer to this. Would that be subject to a town code enforcement officer, or is that a Central Marin Police Authority? Or both?
Either, but our code enforcement is equipped to deal with that and has in other areas that I'm aware of. Can't say if they've dealt with it on Palm and Pepper, but certainly an easy thing for them to add to their list and enforce.
Okay. And the second question I have, I haven't seen the survey yet. Is there, can a citizen who wants to bring attention to, let's say, a sidewalk or an intersection, is there a way that they can drop a pin? Is there a way that they can describe a sidewalk where that they believe is not ADA compliant, so that is when the final report is done, you can generate a map that goes beyond the public facilities that you've discussed?
So I'm going to defer to Chewy on kind of how the right-of-way work kind of folds into, everything we're doing.
So the survey provides an opportunity for the public to provide feedback in terms of if they have found, or if they have an issue with a particular, let's say, intersection, for example, there's an opportunity for them to mention that. And then we will take that information with the work that's already been done in the right of way, and we will weave that into our report so that we can provide priorities for both facilities and elements in the right of way.
Does the survey address sidewalks? Does it have a section that asks for input specifically about sidewalks?
I don't believe it specifically asks for sidewalks, but we can change the wording to make sure that people can understand that by facilities, we mean both the building and infrastructure in the right of way.
I think it's important to use the word sidewalk, because that's what we continually hear about, is sidewalks that are not accessible.
Couple of things on that I'd like to just kind of refresh everyone's memory. So we have had an active ADA grievancy policy on our website since roughly 2014 or prior. And so aside from this kind of ongoing effort, that remains a place where at any time someone can file something that they feel is a grievance with respect to ADA. And we encourage that because we'd love to know so we can plan accordingly and hopefully address it on a sooner than later basis. And then separately, I also want to kind of mention our town sidewalk pilot program that has been in effect for, I want to say, about 3 years. It did split the town into 10 separate zones. And so we have a systematic program that is really focused on sidewalks already, and we're seeing good results. So we're 3 years into, a 10-year cycle in which, theoretically at the end of the 10 years, we'll have addressed, the whole town. Doesn't mean that deficiencies won't continue to happen with, trees lifting up sidewalks and settlement and other things, but nonetheless, we will have done a full pass across our entire town through those 4 strategies. So if you're not familiar with that program, please take a look at our website. And rather, again, with limited money and resources, we didn't want to, we're still capturing the sidewalk component in this effort. But we felt there were a lot of areas that really hadn't received the proper attention. And that's really where we wanted to kind of focus our resources right now.
Understood. Any other comments by the BPAC on this agenda? All right, see none. Sounds great. We'll stay on top of it, and I hope you're very successful in reaching out to the public for this survey.
Thank you.
Hey, 6B is the next item on the agenda, which is a North-South Greenway Southern Segment Technical Assistance Complete Streets Checklist Review.
Great. I'll intro this. We have some representatives from Transportation Authority Marin that are going to join us and speak to this further. So for those that don't know, North-South Greenway Gap Closure Southern Segment is a project that was actively in planning and design circa 2014. At that time, it was looking at connecting the Redwood and Warnham intersection through the back side of kind of the marsh area, and then would go onto the smart right-of-way and eventually cross back over potentially through private property as an access point to the southern terminus of the Corte Madera Creek. And so, for reasons out of Corte Madera's control, at that time, funds were reallocated to some smart stations, and since have not, regionally, we have not been able to replenish those funds to kind of pick up the work. That project was last being led by the County of Marin and was sponsored by Transportation Authority Marin. Currently, and more recently, this project also went to our town council, and a resolution was passed to really show support for the North-South Greenway Southern Segment project. Albeit there is kind of in reviewing it, we want to also look at the long-term vision, which also includes important facilities for flood control of our town. Since that smart barrier really is what we rely on for flood control, the resolution reads to be designated, the path to be designated at an elevation that incorporates the latest sea level rise projections. And so, I think council is saying we're supportive of the project, but we also wanted to fold in, sea level rise as part of the project. And for that reason, we've been in touch with Transportation Authority Marin, County of Marin, as well as Larkspur about this planning grant. And we'd like to submit an application. And as part of that application process, this checklist, this complete street checklist, needs to be reviewed by one of the agencies. And so we said, yeah, absolutely, we're happy to take that before Corte Madera BPAC. And so with that, let's see, I'm waiting on, we should have folks from TAM here.
Hi, RJ. I'm in person. It's Michaela.
Oh, you're in person.
Hi.
Well, there you go. Sorry, no wonder I didn't see your number. So we have Michaela Hyatt with TAM, and she'll kind of walk us through the specifics. But I think, overall, it's a great next step to this overall council and community goal.
Thank you, RJ. I appreciate that. And we appreciate the opportunity to bring this to you all to satisfy the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's complete street checklist requirement in submitting this grant. So as RJ mentioned, TAM recently submitted, pending approval of this complete streets checklist, a grant request to MTC's coordinated call for projects for active transportation technical assistance for funding to further evaluate the North-South Greenway Southern Segment for sea level rise protection integration as well. TAM recognizes the extensive work, as RJ mentioned, that has been conducted on the potential multi-use path to the southern segment to date in close partnership with Corte Madera, Larkspur, County of Marin, and SMART. If awarded, the technical assistance funding would help the project team to evaluate the facility and plans developed to date to incorporate that sea level rise protection that we know is critical for a lot of the assets in the area, and also to continue to move the multi-use path forward. The study would take place over a period we're expecting of about 18 months and include an existing conditions analysis, review of project development needs for sea level rise and right-of-way as well. Public outreach and stakeholder engagement would be a large part of this study as well, and ultimately develop an implementation and delivery plan in the final report. The total request that was submitted to MTC was for about $300,000 for the work to be completed over those 18 months, and the complete streets checklist can be seen in the attached. Happy to take any questions.
what comments do you need from the BPAC to assist you with the checklist?
Any comments that you might have on the responses that were incorporated as a part of the requirements for MTC in our submission, we need a BPAC to review. So long as it is reviewed tonight, then we could submit that to MTC and along with the application.
So, for the members who have reviewed the checklist, it's time for you to make any comments on it.
I just, one clarification, there's been no designation of the alignment for the project. This is really looking at ways to incorporate sea level rise protection into the project, but it's not determining what the final alignment would be.
We will be evaluating that. A big component of this is to integrate and look at what the necessary alignment would need to be to integrate sea level rise because of the levee tie-ins that would need to happen on the side of the marsh as well. So we will be going back and looking at a lot of that work that's already been done to date since the project first kicked off in 2014. There is some work that has been done to study a lot of the alignments that might be possible. So we'll be pulling in a lot of that work that's already been complete and see what else needs to be done to bring in sea level rise protection as well.
And Chris, we may want to pull public feedback before we have any final remarks from BPAC.
I was wondering if there's also some plans to improve the right-of-way on Industrial Way, which I guess is what the railroad right-of-way leads to, unless you want to connect to the old railroad truss, which would be a lot more expensive, obviously. And also if there's any plans on planting trees along the right-of-way or the multi-use pathway, like native oaks and whatnot, and benches and water fountains. So.
Yeah, I think those questions are exactly what we're hoping to answer in this technical assistance and study process. So we will be looking and evaluating those.
So let's go ahead and open it up for public comment to any members of the public that are here with us tonight. And if no one wants to address this agenda item, can we go online? Oh, I'm sorry. We have Matt.
Hi, Matt Hartzell again, speaking as Director of Planning for WTB TAM. This is a project we've advocated for many, many years. I'm very happy to see this grant going forward and hope that it is awarded and support the work that it intends to do. I just would add one question. Is it possible to include in the scope looking at a possible new park or children's playground as part of the project? That was an idea put forward by the late Councilman Kevin Carroll of the city of Larkspur, who passed away last year and who lived in the Marin RV Park and spoke about the need for children's play areas in East Larkspur and that portion of Larkspur and Corte Madera. And there is a kind of big vacant spot on the county's right of way and the smart right of way just east of Industrial Way where that there's a potential area for that to be included. So I'd ask if that could be included in what this project looks at. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment that's here present? And if not, we'll go online.
No hands up online.
Okay. Any final comments from any members of the BPAC? I'm all in favor of this grant being approved. I can't wait for the report to be completed. As the first time that I attended a meeting on that southern segment, my daughter Lucy was in a baby Bjorn. She turned 18 this summer. So this has been important to many of us for a long time. So I'm personally very pleased that it's moving forward. Okay. Moving on to number 7, discussion items, confirm the meeting schedule for 2025. Chris.
All right. Share my screen. So last year, a resolution was passed by council basically to extend BPAC, and they added one or two new things. One of those is that each year we need to confirm the meeting schedule. So up on the screen, you can see it is same schedule as previous years. We'll continue to meet on the second Monday of odd months. I'm held in these Corte Madera Council chambers at 300 Tamalias Drive. So 2025 will be meeting on today, March 10th, May 12th, July 14th, September 8th, and November 10th. So basically just have to state that and have it on the agenda just to say we did it. So any questions on that one?
No questions from me. Anyone else in the BPAC? Good questions. And do we need to open this up for public comment?
We can, yeah. I think
Seeing no hands raised here in person, is there anyone online?
no one online.
Right, schedule looks great. Let's move on to 7B, 2025 Madera Gardens Complete Streets.
Okay. So this is, the 2025 Madera Gardens Complete Streets project is a planned project for this year. We currently have an ongoing storm and sewer project in the neighborhood that are basically taking care of the underground utility needs before we can come in, do topside work. So this project would include new ADA curb ramps on every corner where there's a crossing, road repaving or road sealing, depending on the existing conditions, sidewalk or flat work replacement. One of the 4 strategies RJ mentioned earlier is a CIP version. So in our capital improvement projects, we will spend up to $100,000 to fix sidewalks. So we'll be looking for those opportunities in Madera Gardens. And then there'll be some new or replaced striping and signage. And then as part of the project, it's complete streets. So we're looking at opportunities for traffic calming and pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements. So mainly we're looking on Lakeside Drive, which is kind of the collector in the neighborhood, but also some other key locations where we could potentially include striping changes, bulb outs, improved crosswalks, or even traffic circles. So just recently we began working with parametrics to provide some conceptual drawings for the complete street designs. And then we will basically, once we have those, we'll continue to design, and we're planning to construct in summer 2025. And the sewer project should be complete in April. So here is a kind of just a rough exhibit showing, the areas that we're focusing in on. The areas in yellow are basically where we're looking for opportunities for complete streets improvements. And then the little circled areas are areas where we're trying to install potentially bulb outs, traffic circles, or like a choker crossing, basically just to reduce the length of the crosswalks and just make it safer for pedestrians, and also to slow vehicles down. So that's basically the first step of the project. And then all the roads in the red outline zone will be resurfaced as part of the project as funding allows. So right now we're still kind of in the scoping phase, so we don't have a ton to share, but feel free to, if you have any questions.
Questions from the BPAC?
Oh, I had a question. You said on some of the surrounding arterials would be, is it possible to go back one slide to look at that? So I guess adjacent to Safeway and Madera Boulevard, areas where there's a lot of traffic, I was wondering, in the process of repaving the streets, is it possible to do some traffic calming, like stamped concrete before the intersections to give that feedback of, probably add a minimal increase, maybe 5%. We'll see, but
Yeah, I mean, we're open to all options that are within budget, but yeah, definitely we can take a look at that at least for, the busier areas like Lakeside.
Chris, do you mind unsharing? So I think the comment there was referring to a road that actually is not in the project limit. So if we're talking about Madera, that is not in the project and not envisioned in the project. So that would kind of follow its own path, but certainly open to ideas, feedback on how to best make this complete street project in Madera Gardens, as best it can be with the amount of funding that we have allocated. And, we, as Chris showed, we're really kind of focusing on the Lakeside corridor as kind of that main artery and trying to make any enhancements that we can there, as well as the school zones. So Mohawk and then Hickory. The other streets also will get, reviewed and with, the complete streets lens, but in terms of, funding for, more significant hardscape improvements that Chris mentioned, whether that's, traffic circles, bulb outs, or choker islands. Our current thought is to focus that on that kind of main Lakeside corridor and the school zones.
Chris, how do you intend to solicit public feedback from the citizens that live in Madera Gardens?
So I think once we get a little farther into the design, we have an idea of what we want to do. We will probably come back to BPAC to present that. So likely in a month or two, we'll be at that stage.
Yeah, and I'll add, so as part of our current sewer rehab and storm drain rehab project that's active right now in construction, we did send mailers to everyone in the neighborhood, and they, were informed of the sewer project, but also the upcoming complete streets projects. We're also, prior to this BPAC meeting last week, we had A-frame sandwich boards out there with QR codes, which have been, we've received good feedback on in terms of notifying the public. And so those have been out there in the neighborhoods for, 4 days or so over the weekend. And so that was an attempt to kind of get people early in the process to come here and provide feedback. And whether they do tonight or whether they follow up after, it's still plenty of time. So we encourage that. And as part of a follow-up, we'll definitely target either a future BPAC or a standalone workshop to review alternatives. And we'll do something similar to make sure we probably get sandwich boards out, even more widespread and, for a week or so prior, and then really hit our social media platforms just to get as many people as we can. So
thank you, RJ.
Yeah.
2 questions. One is how much is budgeted for the overall project? And secondly, just what is a choker crossing versus a bulb out?
RJ, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have about 2 million budgeted. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I want to say 1.5 to 2 million. So, and when we say resurfacing, it's really going to depend on the pavement conditions. So, for the ones that, have more structural failures and issues, they'll get, a conventional paving treatment, whereas some that are in really, a lot better condition and just have some minor cracks, they might get a slurry. So, we want to be thoughtful. We want to use our, engineering and get the most bang for our buck to treat the roads. But the goal is to really bring all of the roads in the neighborhood up to, a 75 or 80 PCI by the end of this, if not higher. So.
And then difference between bulb outs and choker islands. Bulb outs generally are concrete. Basically, it's like a sidewalk extension that sticks out in the road. And choker islands are usually more like with striping and bollards or like plastic delineators. So they both function the same way, but one is just made of concrete and costs more.
Yeah, and this is the treatment we recently did at Prince Royal and Spindrift. So, you can definitely get, it's a cost-effective way to get some immediate improvements, but it's not as permanent as doing it all in kind of raised concrete. This is similar to what Larkspur also has on Corte Madera Avenue that extends in front of the private school there as you're heading toward downtown Larkspur. One of the crossings has some kind of choker bulb outs. They're essentially painted bulb outs in lieu of actually physical raised concrete bulb outs, but they do shorten the crossing and also improve sight distance for pedestrians.
No, it's not necessarily a concrete island in the middle of the right of way. It's
Bollards.
more bollards and buttons.
Yeah, like the plastic white delineators and like.
Yeah, we would call them delineators as opposed to bollards. Often bollards are, metal with concrete bases and a lot more fixed and rigid. So these, are more of the plastic entity to, improve sight distance. They also have reflectors for at night, but are not going to be a fixed object for a car that accidentally runs off the roads and hits them.
I had a question regarding, the contracting. Is it going to be done by Corte Madera DPW to save cost, or are you going to subcontract?
We'll have to bid the project. Any project over 75,000 has to go through a formal bidding process. So.
Is there any public comment from anybody that is present?
I'd like to applaud the town for taking initiative to make some improvements, particularly in Madera Gardens. I appreciate the lunch board signs are put up to sort of advise us of this meeting tonight. One question I had with respect to the resurfacing, if you drive through Madera Gardens, you'll note that because of the overlays that have been done over the many, many years, there's a very steep crown in the middle of the street. And also that causes a very abrupt access from the street across the gutter onto someone's driveway. And if you look at those throughout Lakeside and other streets, you'll find a variety of devices have been put in the gutter to prevent that abrupt bump when they go in their driveway. They've paved over with concrete. They put devices which prevents street sweeping from occurring and also prevents the water from draining out of the gutters, which sometimes the water is sitting there for weeks on end. That was done a number of years ago. We had a number of other grants in some of the major streets in town to try to reduce that grade when you're getting out of your car, this steep grade when you open up your door, you can barely open your car door because you're at such an angle. And I just questioned the town if they're going to, when they do resurfacing, are they going to look at that, what they can do to try to improve the gutters adjacent to the street, as well as to remove that abrupt transition from the street through the gutter onto the driveway. One other point I would make is that I applaud the idea of the bulbs relative to safe corners of sidewalks and access to crosswalks. But if you notice some of those that have been constructed recently, like the one particularly at the corner of Hickory and Ash, because it's on a vertical slope, people take that loop around that bulb that sticks out and people coming the other direction are unaware that they're making such a wide turn. It creates almost a head-on collision every time there's two cars approaching that intersection. I don't know engineering how you can resolve that issue, but that's one that exists on our street. But again, look forward to the improvements and hope that as part of the efforts that are being done to repave the streets, if we could do something about the crown, the gutters, to improve that situation in Madera Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's me again. Like the direction that this project's going in, especially the map showing potential locations for new bulb outs, choker islands, and traffic circles. I think there's a lot of potential for Lakeside Drive as both a community and kind of regional corridor. If you look at the North-South Greenway map right now, until such point as the Alto Tunnel is opened, the current alignment goes from Horse Hill down Casa Buena and then up Tamil Vista to Warnham Drive. But Tamil Vista is a very busy road, and Lakeside actually offers a nice, quieter alternative that's parallel to Tamil Vista. And especially with these traffic calming improvements coming, I think Lakeside Drive could be promoted as a good kind of low stress, near-term alignment for the North-South Greenway through Corte Madera. And really like what was done using quick build methods over at Spindrift and Prince Royal, and I think that more quick build curb extensions like that in Madera Gardens would be a good thing. Traffic circles are also intriguing. And I would also recommend the town to look at opportunities to narrow lanes in Madera Gardens where possible, either possibly by striping fog lines or shoulder lines to visually narrow travel lanes to 10.5 feet if possible. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Chris, are there any public comment online?
Yes, we have two people with their hands up. Odin, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Odin Palin, a student at Redwood High School. I really appreciate the town's commitment to bike and ped safety in Madera Gardens with this project. And I would like to suggest that as funding allows, the gravel path between Lakeside Drive and the North-South Greenway, if paving that could be included with this project. I know that gets very often busy with bikes and pedestrians with the paved paths to the north and to the south of it. And this could definitely be an improvement that could be considered. Thank you.
Chris, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Disconnected, reconnected. Just wanted to understand also as a part of the project, if you'd look at potentially flashers where the bike path crosses Lakeside and I think it's Hickory by the school. I think it's great. We have a crossing guard at one of those on Hickory during the school hours, but I think as people use, as was mentioned, as an alternative bike path, there's a lot of traffic outside of school hours that would be helped, I think, by a lot of these facilities, but also potentially flashers if that's acceptable within the neighborhood.
Right.
That's it.
Any final comments from the BPAC on Madera Gardens Complete Streets? Go forward and make safer streets. Fantastic. 7C, discussion regarding the approved ordinance 1042, which the town council adopted an ordinance to reduce the speed limits for 9 roadway segments in Corte Madera.
Okay. Yeah, so this item went to council end of last year and passed, so we want to bring it back to BPAC and just report on it. So In just going back a little history, October 8th, 2021, California Assembly Bill 43 was signed into law and went into effect July 30th of last year. AB 43 provides cities more flexibility when establishing speed limits in business and residential districts, and allows for reduced speed limits after considering safety, land uses, and concentration of levels of bikes and pedestrians, especially those from vulnerable groups such as children, seniors, persons with disabilities, and individuals experiencing homelessness. So that language is basically taken straight out of the bill. But so in last year, we worked with parametrics to evaluate which roads could have the speed limits reduced using the new AB 43 rules to increase traffic safety around town. And after new traffic surveys were completed, it was determined that there were 9 roads that were located in residential or business districts that were eligible to have their speed limits reduced. So on November 19th and December 3rd of last year, Town Council discussed and then approved Ordinance 1042, which approved changing the speed limits on the following 9 streets. Just quickly go through. So Madera Boulevard, Paradise Drive, San Clemente Drive, Tama Vista Boulevard, Tamalpais Drive, Alta Way, and Casa Buena Drive. So many of those are kind of larger arterials or collectors around town. And in general, the speed limit will go down about 5 miles per hour. And then Alta Way was another street that was, we had a bunch of residents complaining that there was people speeding during a rush hour commute. So that one was added onto the list as well because it's a very steep and narrow street up in Chapman Park. So this may be hard to see, but there's 2 maps of town. The left one is basically before this new ordinance, and the right is after. So on the left, you can see the streets highlighted in yellow are 30 miles per hour, and then orange is 35, green is 25. And so on the right, they switched some of the colors to make it confusing, but green is 25, orange is 30, and then purple is 20. So the Tamalpais corridor will be 25, and then it becomes 20 as you go up towards Mankey Park and kind of the downtown region, because there's lots of crosswalks and blind corners there. San Clemente Drive was 35, it'll become 30. And then as you enter Paradise, that is going to be 25. So depending on the workload, either the town's maintenance staff will be doing the work to replacing the signs, or we'll be hiring a contractor. And the goal is to have them replaced by this summer. So as we're replacing them, you will see something like this with the new on top, just to tell people that the speed limits are changing. So that covers that item. Is there?
I'll jump in, Chris, before we hand it over. I just want to thank Vice Chair McPherson for flagging this early in 2024. Definitely help kick things off and kind of get a contract going with parametrics to evaluate these. But for anyone, and we would have wanted to bring this to BPAC before council, but we also didn't want to delay getting this into motion. And so we decided to move that forward in November, and I hope you all support that decision. One thing that if you were able to, if you haven't seen that report to council, you can check it out. But really, there's some data and crash analysis that kind of reviews the the likelihood of survival of a pedestrian being hit by a vehicle at various speeds, and it's pretty eye-opening. You know, at 40 miles per hour, it's a, you know, not a very good outlook. Whereas, you know, as you trend down to 20 miles per hour, that, you know, you do have a real chance of survival. And so that was, you know, part of San Francisco's Vision Zero project, and we kind of showed some of those statistics. But you know, the goal here is just, you know, basically every mile per hour we can reduce on these roads that have a lot of bikes and peds. We just think we're gonna have safer outcomes. So that's kind of the basis here.
Thank you, RJ. Any questions, not comments, questions for Chris or RJ before we go to public comment?
Is there any plan to use to publicize these changes? Because I think some of those roadways, particularly Paradise, is designed almost like a runway, and it's easy for a driver to you know, get the throttle going. So I think just changing the signs won't be sufficient to really change behavior. If we get more publicity and even enforcement, if I know that the CMPA is strapped, but to have a specific program and maybe even get an Office of Traffic Safety grant for enforcement in particular places, in prioritized places, that might be a good idea.
So if I can respond to that. So some things just want to bring up. So, I mean, so in years past, you know, we really were beholden by the 85th percentile speed limit or speed to determine speed limits. And so what this new law does, right, it allows us to, under certain scenarios, come up with an alternate justification that is legal. Whereas prior, had we artificially reduced the speed limit, it would not be legally enforceable. So that is one of the bigger benefits in terms of enforceability. So, you know, as far as we know, these are legally enforceable speed limits. They're backed by engineering traffic survey. And so that will give CMPD more tools. As we get into implementation or closer to implementation, certainly we will, you know, put this out in the community. You know, last thing we want is, yeah, it's better if everyone knows it going in and observes it at the same time, rather than have some people going the old speed limit and some people go the new. But nonetheless, there will be, by vehicle code, a 30-day grace period from the time the signs go up until they are citable. So,
I also had a question if you guys were considering doing, you know, full-scale arterial traffic calming on all these roads because, you know, the speed limit can turn into the speed minimum if it's designed like a highway with wide vehicular travel lanes, no median like on San Clemente and parts of Paradise between Seawolf Passage and Prince Royal. Previously, I mentioned there aren't even streetlights there. There never have been for 60 years. So yeah, any traffic calming like raised crosswalks at any of these school crossing guard sections or rapid flashing beacons. I think that these raised crosswalks, the 20-mile-per-hour ones, are designed where you can't go over 20 miles per hour on them. Like it forces, you know, safety doesn't work on the honor system. It has to be mandated through road design. Yeah. So.
Yeah, happy to comment a little bit on that. So, I mean, generally as part of our pavement rehab and complete streets projects, that's when we spend the kind of design effort to really look at traffic calming, all those things. Sometimes there is a need because of a, you know, specific issue, whether it be a couple of accidents or something that we jump on it in kind of a one-off basis, but usually it's part of our Complete Streets projects. You know, and speaking to speed humps and raised crosswalk, that's kind of a whole nother discussion that we could probably spend like, you know, a full hour on. You know, it can reduce speeds, but you know, there are other things to consider, such as emergency services, you know, even just fire engines running through them with, you know, thousands of gallons of water, and then also ambulance with all the apparatus they have, and then as well as the noise factors and other things. So there's a whole kind of slew of considerations that I don't think we have. We don't have an agenda as in the time to go through it today, but I appreciate the comments. But you know, we, you know, there is a limitation to our funding and resources, and you know, it would be great to be able to every year, you know, look and evaluate every single road and implement it, but unfortunately that's not the reality. So again, if something is severe enough, it will raise through the priorities to our attention, but for right now we're using signage in this particular study bill to really improve the results.
Any public comment from anybody that's here?
Yeah, Tom Knopsiger from 29 El Camino Drive. I'm so excited about the speed limit reduction. Lived in town for the last 17 years. This is very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, got job well done. This is really great progress. I've been speaking at all the different cities and towns around the county about AB 43, and I think Corte Madera is doing one of the best jobs. So really applaud you there. Just want to say education is going to be really important. There's a lot of people who have been used to the current speed limits for decades, and I like that the new speed limit signs are going to have that new on top of them. I think there's a lot more that can be done. I realize that costs some money, but the town has some resources that it's available, like the digital readout board at the rec center maybe could have a message. Banners hanging from light posts, maybe a float in the 4th of July parade. Definitely try to get the word out. That's going to be important. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you. Chris, do we have any public comment online?
You have one hand up. Patty, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. RJ, I don't know if you ever discussed this before, but you see it on social media where they have like Trump Loy, it looks like a crosswalk is floating or something, so it makes people slow down because it either terrifies them or catches them by surprise. And I wonder if that's ever been considered in Corte Madera. So I see it and I think, oh, that's a great idea. So pass that along.
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled. You know, all the things that we do implement though have to be approved by the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's really the kind of Bible, so to speak, when it comes to traffic control devices, such as really everything, signage being one of them, striping, etc. And so we do rely on that, and if that becomes a tool that is supported in that document, we'll certainly look at it. But now I'll have to keep an eye on
okay,
that.
if I see it, I'll pass it along.
All right, sounds good.
I also wondered about on Casa Buena when you're turning towards going onto the freeway. Can we get a sign there that says yield to pedestrians? Right turn, yield to pedestrians?
Right there at Tamalpais?
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any closing comments by members of the BPAC on the reduced speed limits?
I was wondering if you had a talk with Central Marin Police Authority on how this is going to change ticketing of traffic violations. Because previously, say for example, on San Clemente, where it was 35 miles an hour speed limit. Now it's 30. Before, people were regularly driving 46, 50 miles an hour because usually cops, anything over 11 miles per hour above the speed limit is when they get their ticket sheet out, you know. So informing people that if they go 41 miles an hour faster, they may get ticketed. And I know the cops, their motorcycle ticket teams are pretty effective. They're very sneaky. So I'm worrying about you know, communications between the town and the police authority on traffic violations and increased ticketing due to lowered speed limits.
Yeah, so we did vet these speed limits with Central Rome Police Authority prior to taking them to council, and they were supportive. But if you've been kind of aware of their situation, they're at historic lows in terms of staffing. So there are times when they will be able to enforce and you know, keep that new speed limit, you know, people, you know, honest and whatnot. And there'll be other times where they'll have other priorities. But I think what I would say is that someone who's going 46, I think you said, on San Clemente is more likely to get a ticket with the new speed limits than they were with the old speed limits. And I would probably say something similar for all the other segments that are dropping by 5 miles per hour. So
my comment really is very appreciative of how nimble and quickly the Department of Public Works and parametrics responded to this change in the law. And I applaud going directly to the town council, because ultimately they are the deciders on whether to pass that ordinance. And I think that reduced, got it passed months before it would have if it had gone through the BPAC. So that, yeah, I think you did really well, RJ and Chris and everybody that's involved, including parametric and of course the town council. Appreciated your work and passed that ordinance. The only final comment I would make is that if we can get grant money for the installation of those flashing radar speed indicators in various towns that I've driven through, both in California and out, there's certain designs that are brighter, catch your eye more, and they either flash or they have a tendency to really wake you up. And so whatever advancements there are in those signs that read the actual speed of people going up and down Tamalpais or San Clemente or Paradise and notify them by the appropriate flashing lights that they're, X number of miles over the speed limit. I think that that'll be effective before the actual citations and enforcement go into effect. So thanks again. So the final discussion item is 7D, which is a draft of all the work that Department of Public Works plans to accomplish in 2025.
thank you. And I'm happy to speak to that. Chris, I have okay, you have that one. Okay.
You want to share a different one?
That's okay. I think it's roughly the same. So thank you all. So really this is kind of, even though our budget cycles go through the fiscal year, July 1 to June 30th, really for engineering, our team, in a lot of ways is more on a calendar cycle because it's just more conducive to how we operate. We do a lot of our planning and design work in the winter so that we can implement in the warmer months, spring, summer, and early fall. So we're having these discussions with council, hence the draft comment, and many of these things are backed by many years of other efforts, including community input and whatnot and various master plans. But we have a very robust work plan. Chris has highlighted the items that we believe are of note to BPAC. And the other thing that I would also mention, aside from this, we also have even more progress in terms of dollars on Sanitary District 2, closer to they're $10+ million. So it's a busy year, although we're excited about it. Oh, there is an SC2 component there. And just wanted to bring it up to see if there are any questions, comments, or maybe something just is missed, or maybe thought of it should have been in this year versus a future year. So would love to get your feedback prior to kind of finalizing this with town council.
Any questions by the BPAC? Any public comment? Any public comment online?
We have one hand up. Chris, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks. Just wanted to understand, so if the Paradise Complete Streets westward to Robin is up for design and RFP in 2025, does that mean construction was possible in 2025, or if that's likely 2026? Thanks.
So it's still in design. Unfortunately, due to PG&E utility pole relocations that have been taking longer than planned, we had to push the construction to 2026. So currently.
Okay, thanks for the update. Sorry to interrupt.
Just a question, refresh my memory. Central Marin Regional Pathways gap closure, just specifically what that is?
Yes, so that's a project that recently was completed on Warnham Drive in Nellen, and also Pfeiffer. So we basically rebuilt the multi-use path on Warnham, and then built a new class 4 bike path down Nellen, and improved the crossing on Pfeiffer. So basically it closed the gap in bike lanes in several directions, kind of in the center of town.
So it's completed, but it's in the work plan for the coming year?
Well, it's the construction's complete, but we're still closing it out. So it's, there's some disputes with the contractor. So it's going to take a decent amount of staff time to put that one to rest. So it's still on the list.
Assuming that the budget and projects are approved by the town council, is it correct for me to assume that some of these projects may come back before the BPAC to give us an update as necessary?
Yes, especially the ones further down that are in design. Those will most definitely come back. The bottom two are Lucky Drive, Multimodal, and Paradise Drive gap closure. We are currently applying for grant funds for those, so they're very early on in the process.
Right.
So yeah, we'd come back if we were able to get grant funding.
All right. Any final comments from the BPAC?
I guess, with all due respects to the new federal administration, is there any, expediency towards grant applications for federal funding that you guys are looking towards, and possible accruing any traffic materials like bollards and whatnot before any potential tariff impacts on stuff like that, for town projects?
We're always, on the lookout for grant opportunities, and we apply for the ones that make sense. A lot of federal funding, just because of the amount of requirements that go along with it, it doesn't make sense to accept funding unless you're doing a certain size project. So sometimes that creates barriers with federal funding. But oh yeah, we're always we're applying for a few right now, and we're always on.
And Chris, project updates.
So this kind of, some of these projects were on that list, so I will just gloss over them. But I think I just talked about the Central Marin Regional Pathways gap closure. So that one's complete, and we're just still working with the contractor to try and fully close it out. But if you go over there, everything's open now to the public. So that one's good. Casa Buena Complete Streets, construction's ongoing. Construction should be substantially complete by the end of February. However, there's been a handful of utility conflicts. So there's going to be a portion of the northbound lane that's going to be delayed several months due to a PG&E conflict. So that part will remain unpaved until we can work that out.
So we're meeting with PG&E on a weekly basis to come up with a path forward. But yeah, there is going to be some portion of the Casa Buena Complete Streets project that is going to have to be deferred, and we're still working through that. So we'll provide an update at a future meeting on kind of overall status.
Is that section of roadway closer to Marin Joe's or closer to the freeway?
So there's a gas transmission line that is on the freeway side right near the edge of the existing roadway, and it's shallow. And so where we had planned for widening the road and installing curb and gutter, or actually I think just curb, and we had been communicating with PG&E for, I want to say, since 2018. They told us that, first they were going to address the gas transmission work as part of a separate project. And then they said they did some changes in operations to where it didn't need to happen. And so we proceeded with our project. And then now we're in construction. They're saying we can't build the full extent of our improvements that are in our bid. So again, working through that, want to do what's best for the overall public, trying not to, we can't build things without authorization to an extent anyway, but even if we did, we also don't want to build things that are going to get torn up shortly thereafter. So still working through that. That's a rather recent one.
Thank you.
Continuing down Echo Connector path, that's ongoing, but the path is now paved, and I believe it should be done by the end of this week. So that one's getting close. And then we talked about this one a bit. Paradise Drive Complete Streets from westward to the town limit. Construction's getting pushed to 2026.
Have a lot of people happy about the Echo Connector path being completed. That's great. All right. All right. Any comment from the public on the project updates that were just presented?
Again, we just rode the Echo Connector path, and it's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Good. Our final item, I'm sorry.
When will the Hart Street connector be built? Is that going to be this summer?
It's planned for this year, yeah.
Thank you. Final item is any comments from the BPAC and or the public regarding future agenda items? Cheryl?
I would like to see the BPAC discuss how to address the issue that Mr. Middlestead brought up earlier on the use of class 2, I think they're class 2 bicycles by members of the public younger than 16 and the AB 1778.
I agree that if Chair Ravazio and the Department of Public Works can fit it in, I think that it would be excellent to have AB 1778 agendized for 2 reasons. One is just to continue to educate the public, but more importantly, to really look hard at methods to implement and enforce it. And I think the public should be involved in that before it goes back to the town council.
So without getting into it, I know we don't have it agendized, but I do want to say that, we'll have to post where the information is available publicly, but there actually has been a tremendous amount of improvements at the various middle schools and high schools, and through CMPD doing inspections of bikes and doing registration of bikes. And I don't know if that's something that BPAC and our local community is aware of, but really that has been the biggest area for improvement, along with the schools having a full Rolodex of parents that obviously have a decision-making process in what they usually buy their children's and adolescents. So I'd like to just kind of, we'll look at it in our work plan. We have a busy work plan. I just want to make sure that we're spending our limited time in what is the best way. And I actually think the schools and CMPD are the most equipped to handle this at this juncture, but we'll take it in and review accordingly.
The next item that should be considered for an agenda on the BPAC is the Tainter steps that was brought up, even if it's just a quick evaluation by the town and a quick evaluation in terms of what improvements can be made and timing, if there can be a report on that. Also, I think this came up recently in Larkspur, the new crosswalk daylighting law. There are several different ways to enforce that, and I think Public Works in Larkspur brought before the public various alternatives to enforce the crosswalk daylighting law, including using, choker islands, delineators, or just red paint or a combination. And so if that is something that the Department of Public Works can present at the next BPAC, that would be great. And this does not need to be agendized necessarily, but I noticed that our rapid flashing beacons on Tamalpais still have sort of a phantom effect where only one side will work, and it's not because it's being pushed by a pedestrian. So I don't know whether a vendor or somebody can come out and test and improve those. But that's something I've been noticing a lot lately, that up and down Tamalpais. And I'm sure that I'm looking very carefully that it's not a pedestrian who's already gone through and the full system is not operational. It's only one side or the other. So if that can be addressed, thank you very much.
Couple quick comments on that. So on the daylighting, it was on our work plan. So it's something that we're really going to go into implementation and really target our main drags first, and then kind of go from there. And but I think, we want to get those addressed as soon as possible without delay. And then on the RFBs, yeah, I know this was brought up in the past. We did have DC Electric go out and do a round of updates, which I think involved putting them on some certain ones on different frequencies. And I think that was, I did see an improvement. But if there's a specific location that you believe is still malfunctioning, let us know, and we'll have them look at that specific crossing.
Crosswalk here to Town Hall is one I've been noticing over the past week.
Yeah, I would like to second the comment about daylighting, and also if the town is considering, implementing a fee like San Rafael was the first in the county, around $65 fine if you park in the red daylighted section. And if you're considering doing, a little bit of signage saying, new Assembly Bill 413 within maybe a block or so of main arterials to keep prices down. And yeah, that's pretty much the agenda.
So CMPD is pushing out the daylighting per the California Vehicle Code already. We'll be, I would say, echoing a lot of that communication as we kind of gear up for implementation. But it is citable per the vehicle code as is without any local ordinance.
Thank you, RJ.
Yep.
And with that, we'll close the January 13th Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the town of Corte Madera.